concrete steps of the Maple Street apartments. The old building loomed like a corpse, tall, grey, and half swallowed by creeping ivy. Each window was fogged from the inside, and the faint flicker of dying light bulbs gave the corridor a strange, pulsing heartbeat. Daniel hesitated before entering. He was exhausted, from moving, from life, from everything. After losing his job and breaking up with his girlfriend, he needed a place to start over. The rent here was cheap, too cheap, but that's what he could afford. Inside, the hallway smelled of dust, wet wood, and something faintly metallic. The floor creaked under his steps as he followed the landlord, Mr. Carver, a thin, elderly man with trembling hands and eyes that never quite met Daniel's. Carver unlocked the door to apartment 407. "This is it," he muttered. "Simple, quiet, and all yours. Just don't go nosing around where you shouldn't." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Carver's eyes darted toward the far end of the hall, where a sealed door stood, its edges lined with old nails and wood strips painted the same color as the wall. "That one," Carver said quietly, "used to be a storage room. We had to seal it up years ago. Best not to mess with it." Daniel nodded awkwardly, assuming the man was just paranoid. But as he stepped inside the apartment, he noticed something unsettling. Every sound seemed slightly delayed, like echoes bouncing off unseen walls. Even the tick of his wristwatch seemed slower here. The place was small but livable, a single room with a narrow kitchenette, an old wooden table, a thin bed, and one tall chair that creaked whenever he touched it. A dusty window looked out onto nothing but a brick wall just a few feet away. No sunlight, no view, just bricks, endless, lifeless bricks. He sighed. "Well, Daniel, welcome to your new beginning." He unpacked, trying to ignore the uneasy silence. Every so often he thought he heard faint whispers. Just the wind, he told himself. But at night the whispers returned. The rain continued to fall outside, tapping against the window like fingers drumming impatiently. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. The pipes moaned, the floorboards popped, and then a soft creak. He sat up. The noise came from the living area. "Probably just the chair," he muttered, trying to sound confident even though his voice trembled. But when he turned his head, his heart stopped. The chair, the same one that had been beside the table, was now facing his bed. He froze, unable to breathe. His eyes darted around the room, searching for signs of someone else, but the door was locked from the inside. It didn't make sense. He hadn't moved it. No one could have entered. Slowly, Daniel got out of bed and pushed the chair back where it belonged. "Old furniture moves," he whispered. "Uneven floors, that's all." He laughed nervously and went back to bed, but the sleep that came was restless and thin. When he finally woke in the morning, the sunlight that leaked through the window was dull and pale. For a brief moment he forgot everything, until he looked across the room. The chair was back facing the bed. A chill crawled down his spine. He grabbed his coat and stormed down to the building office. Mr. Carver sat there, sipping coffee, reading a yellowed newspaper. Daniel slammed his keys on the counter. "Is someone coming into my room at night?" Carver looked up, annoyed. "No one's got access but you. I told you, it's an old place. Things creak, things move. Happens all the time." "Then what about that sealed door in the hallway?" Daniel pressed. "You said it used to be a storage room. What's really behind it?" The old man's eyes hardened. "You don't want to know," he said flatly, and before Daniel could argue, Carver stood and walked away. That night, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that the apartment was watching him. He tried reading, but the words on the page blurred. Every few minutes, the air grew colder. At 2:47 a.m., a noise woke him, a soft knock. It came from the hallway, then again, louder. He grabbed a flashlight and opened his door. The hall was dark, the only light a dim bulb flickering overhead. The sound came again, from the sealed door at the end. Daniel walked toward it slowly, heart hammering. The closer he got, the colder it felt. He placed his hand on the old wood and felt a faint vibration as if something inside was breathing. Then a whisper right by his ear. "Open quote, Daniel." Close quote. He jerked back, stumbling into the wall. His flashlight flickered. He stared at the sealed door, every instinct screaming to run, but he couldn't move. It was as if the air itself held him there, frozen. After what felt like minutes, the whispering stopped. The air warmed slightly. Daniel forced himself to step closer, inspecting the edges. And that's when he saw it. a thin crack, running down the frame. Through it, a narrow sliver of pure darkness seeped out, blacker than any shadow. He stumbled backwards, slamming his apartment door shut. His breathing came in ragged bursts. He pressed his back against the wall, eyes wide with terror, waiting for something, anything to happen. But nothing did. The night fell silent again. And somewhere beyond that sealed door, in the cold blackness, something whispered one last sounds inside. The next morning, Daniel woke with a pounding headache. Sunlight, weak and cold, filtered through the narrow window, painting grey lines across the floor. The memories of last night clung to him like cobwebs. The whisper, the crack, the sense of something alive behind that sealed door. He tried to convince himself it was a dream. Lack of sleep, stress, maybe even the mouldy air in this place. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. The apartment felt wrong. The air was heavier. Every sound had weight. Even his own breathing seemed too loud. He decided to distract himself. He made coffee, opened his laptop and started working on some freelance editing. But every few minutes, a faint tap-tap-tap echoed through the hallway. It was subtle at first, like dripping water. Then it became rhythmic, intentional. Someone, or something, was knocking from inside that sealed room. By evening, Daniel's nerves were shredded. He tried turning up music, but the sound distorted. The voices in the song stretched, words twisting into whispers that seemed to murmur his name. He slammed the laptop shut and pressed his palms against his temples. "Get a grip, Daniel. You're losing it." Then the power flickered. The lights dimmed to a dull orange glow before dying completely. Silence. In the pitch black, the tapping began again. Slower this time. Tap, tap, tap. Daniel's hands trembled as he grabbed his phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam wavered down the hallway. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts. He took a step forward, every floorboard groaning beneath him. When he reached the sealed door, the sound stopped. The silence was so thick it pressed against his eardrums. He swallowed hard and whispered, "Who's there?" For a moment, nothing. Then a voice, faint like it came from deep underground. Open quote, "Please help me." Close quote. Daniel's breath hitched. It was a woman's voice, fragile, trembling, full of despair. He pressed his ear to the door. "Who are you?" he whispered. "Are you trapped?" Open quote, "Cold," the voice said. "So cold. Please." Close quote. He stepped back, staring at the crack that now ran deeper through the wood. The blackness inside wasn't just shadow. It pulsed faintly, as if something inside was breathing. Daniel's rational mind screamed at him to stop, to get out, to call someone. But curiosity drowned reason. He had to know. He grabbed a screwdriver from his kitchen drawer and returned to the door. His heart pounded as he began unscrewing the nails that held the frame shut. Each twist of metal echoed through the hallway like a heartbeat. Click, click, click. The final nail clattered to the floor. He hesitated. His fingers hovered over the doorknob. "Are you still there?" he whispered. For a long time, no response. Then, so softly, he almost didn't hear it. Open quote, "Yes, come in." Close quote. The door creaked open an inch on its own. A wave of icy air hit him, smelling of rot, damp wood, and something ancient, something that didn't belong in this world. The darkness beyond seemed alive, like liquid shadow shifting in slow motion. Daniel raised his flashlight and pushed the door wider. The room inside was small and bare, 4 walls, no furniture, no window. Only a mirror, standing upright against the far wall, draped in dust. The beam of light quivered as he approached it. The air was thick, suffocating. He wiped the surface of the mirror with his sleeve, revealing his own reflection, pale, wide-eyed, terrified. But then, the reflection smiled. Daniel froze. He hadn't moved, but his reflection had. The smile stretched wider, unnatural and cold. "What?" he began, but the reflection raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. Daniel stepped back. The mirror's surface rippled like water disturbed by a stone. The reflection's lips moved, whispering something he couldn't hear. Then the voice came, not from the air, but from inside his head. Open quote, "Now it's your turn." Close quote. The flashlight flickered violently. The room spun. A sudden gust of freezing wind blew through the open door, slamming it shut behind him. Daniel screamed, spinning toward the door, but it was gone, vanished into the wall. He turned back to the mirror. His reflection was gone. Only darkness filled the glass, stretching endlessly deep, like looking into a well that had no bottom. Then 2 pale hands pressed against the other side of the mirror from within. A face emerged, his own face, smiling, eyes black and hollow. Daniel stumbled backward, tripping over debris, the phone light flickering out completely. In total darkness, he heard his reflection whisper one final phrase, so close it felt like it came from behind him. Open quote, welcome home. Close quote, he spun around, but there was no one there. Only cold air, only silence. The mirror stood still, showing nothing but the faintest outline of his terrified face. And then, the light died. When Daniel opened his eyes, everything was silent. He was lying on the cold wooden floor, the air thick with dust. His head throbbed like someone had driven a spike through his skull. The flashlight lay beside him, its beam dead. He sat up slowly, confused. The sealed room around him looked different. The walls were cleaner now, less decayed, but the colour was off, slightly inverted, like a photograph in negative. The air shimmered faintly, heavy with static. He turned toward the door. It stood open, but the hallway beyond wasn't the same hallway he'd entered from. It stretched infinitely long, fading into fog. The light bulbs flickered in rhythm, click, 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 as if pulsing to a heartbeat that wasn't his. Daniel's chest tightened. What the hell? He took a cautious step into the hallway. His reflection from the mirror was nowhere to be seen, yet he could feel something following him. Every time he turned, he caught the faintest shadow of movement, like someone ducking just out of sight. He ran a trembling hand through his hair. It's just a nightmare. I'm dreaming. But the air didn't feel like a dream. It was too real. The cold bit into his skin. The silence pressed against his ears. He walked toward where his apartment should have been. There it was, apartment 407. But the door wasn't his door anymore. The number was reversed, the wood freshly polished as though decades younger. He reached for the handle and opened it. Inside was his apartment, yet wrong in every possible way. Everything was mirrored, the furniture on the opposite side, the window flipped, the writing on the coffee mug backward. Even his own photograph on the wall had its frame reversed, and in it he wasn't smiling. The version of him in the picture was staring back, eyes black as coal. Daniel stumbled backward, horror crawling up his spine. What's happening to me? He grabbed his phone, desperate to call someone, but when he unlocked it, the screen showed nothing but a distorted reflection of his own face. And then the reflection grinned. He threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. Yet instead of glass, a dark liquid spilled from it, dripping onto the floor like ink. A whisper echoed through the apartment, low and mocking. Open quote, you shouldn't have opened the door, Daniel. Close quote. He spun around. The voice had come from the mirror, the same one he'd found in the sealed room. It now stood in the corner, tall and gleaming, though he hadn't brought it here. Its surface rippled gently like a pond disturbed by invisible hands. Who are you? He shouted. From inside the mirror, a shape began to form. It was him, his reflection, now smiling that same unnaturally wide smile. But this time the reflection spoke aloud, perfectly mimicking his voice. Open quote, I'm you. Or rather, I will be. Close quote, Daniel's blood ran cold. What do you want? The reflection tilted its head, still smiling. Open quote, freedom. You open the door. That means you trade places. That's the rule. Close quote. What rule? Daniel screamed. Open quote, every mirror is a gate, it whispered. Someone always has to stay behind. Close quote. Before he could react, the reflection stepped out of the mirror. The surface rippled, and with a sickening slurp, the other Daniel, identical but darker, emerged into the room. His movements were smooth, almost graceful. He looked around, smiling softly. Open quote, your world feels so warm. Close quote. Daniel backed away, heart hammering. Stay away from me! The reflection chuckled, voice calm and familiar. Open quote, don't worry, you'll have yours too. There's plenty of room on the other side. Close quote. Daniel turned to run, but the door was gone. Only walls, endless grey walls, surrounded him. He clawed at them, shouting, but they were solid as stone.